All right. You guys ready? Learn about web animation? Yeah? Cool. My name's Chris. We already met. Yeah, web animation. It's not, there we go. Hi, I'm Chris. I work here in this building, in this school. I'm a designer slash developer. I went to school for design and I self-taught development. So I've made cool stuff for those people that are listed and some other ones. Moving on. I'm going to try to make this quick because I did my whole presentation and timed it, and it was like 25 minutes. I'm going to squash it. I promise. Okay, why? Why are we here? This is a code meetup. Why am I talking about animation on the web? That's a designer's problem, right? This is all opinion here on the right, but developers make stuff actually work. Designers make that stuff so that people actually want to use it. And when those things, web animation is a good example of when a developer has to do a little design, because a designer can't write all the complicated code to do the animation. Or, on the other hand, it can go the other way, when a designer has to learn how to do a bit of code so they can help the developer actually execute that stuff. So, you guys are developers, you need to learn a little bit of design, a little bit of animation, make it a bit more fun. So, web animation is this. Okay, I put GIFs in here. I didn't know she was going to do it too. I thought I'd be unique. This GIF is titled, "Come on, you didn't think I'd talk about web animation without weird GIFs, right?" Okay. Why are we using animation? Why should we use animation on the web? In almost all of our projects. Note the almost. First, I'm going to breeze through these. Draw area to the AOF. Who knows what AOF stands for? I bet she does. It's area of focus. If you're designing a website, there's a part that you want the user to see, draw the eye to. It might be like a buy now button. I bet your client really wants the user to notice that button, right? So it's the most important thing. Communication of state. Now, you guys are developers, you know what state means, right? Okay, I'm glad you do. So an example would be validation. If the user types something that isn't an email address in the email address field, you can just put the little message there that says that's not an email address, or you can make it shake and turn red or flash or jump or whatever. Makes it more fun. It's because if it just says something mean to them, then that's just mean. Be nice to your users. We like our users, right? Put some cute little animation in there. They'll feel happy that they screwed up the form. They'll try to screw it up in other ways. Users screw everything up. So relationships between elements, that's another thing that we use animation for. Two separate elements on the page that are related. If I click this button and that thing jumps, I know they're related, right? And then, of course, to excite, entrance, and add energy to a website. That's the obvious one. I call this one excite, entrance, and add energy. Why would we not animate? Why would we avoid animation on the web? Load time, that's obvious. More code means more load time. Time to use. Don't be the skip intro guy. You guys remember that from the Flash days? Anybody? Where you had to, every website had a stupid animated intro. Yeah, don't be that guy. Performance. If it's done right, this isn't an issue. But if it's done wrong, you'll alienate every user that doesn't have like the latest gaming GPU or whatever. It can be distracting and disorienting. Too much animation can be very distracting. It can even be disorienting, especially for your older users who are like, my newfangled device, stuff's flying around. It can be bad. It can actually go, medical. You can, people with epilepsy, if you've got stuff flashing all over the place, you can actually cause people to have seizures and stuff. Don't go insane with it. Branding issues. If it's a serious subject, it shouldn't have animation. If you're doing a website for a funeral home, don't animate that. If it's a fun subject, fun animation, right? If it's a luxurious, if it's a luxury car brand, make cool, slow, swanky animations. If it's an elite, Nike or something, fast, punchy animations. Make sure the animation fits your branding. Accessibility, this kind of goes along with what I was saying before about distracting and disorienting. Screen readers can't describe an animation to a blind user. So that means that your animation has to be not mission critical. the website has to work completely without the animation. It's just here for that extra bit. So that's lots of reasons why we wouldn't animate, but we can overcome all of these things, and we can have fun, right? I call this one animation on a funeral home website. Okay, so how do we actually do it? Well, wherever possible, use CSS to do your animations. CSS is more performant, just barely. Some of the good JavaScript libraries are getting very performant, but CSS is always going to win because it's built into the browser, it's GPU from the start, especially if you use this little hack. If you do transform translate Z0, that like sends it from the CPU to the GPU, and it'll be rendered by the GPU without actually changing its appearance at all. It's a nice little hack for you. Animation is style, right? So it belongs in our style code, so it should go in the CSS. It's really well supported nowadays, i.e. 8 is gone. Thank you. It's pretty much gone. Yeah. So I call this one, did Chris just say CSS was better than JavaScript? Okay, I'm just kidding. JavaScript, you know, this is Atlanta JavaScript. I'm not going to. So it's really about picking the right tool, CSS or JavaScript. Use CSS for the smaller animations that you can pull it off with. But JavaScript can do crazy stuff with really complex timelines of hundreds of elements and doing very specific timing, which would just be a nightmare with that horrible keyframe interface in CSS. Anyone use keyframes in CSS? Anyone want to murder themselves? Okay. You can do other stuff with JavaScript that you can't do with CSS. Like you can use calculated numbers in your animation. So you can, pull the measurements of the window and calculate things based on that, or the scroll position, or just an arbitrary set of data, or user input, or any of these things that couldn't go into your CSS. It's more than just hover and active, right? You can trigger JavaScript animations however you want, based on whatever logic you have. And of course, you can control the playback, play, pause, resume, restart, change the speed of the playback. CSS has some events, but they're kind of weird and spotty. So I kind of avoid them because the support's a little weird. I should have hit this button before I took a drink. I call this one, I didn't know what to call this one. I'll just let that sink in. I don't remember what I Googled to get this one. It was late. So how do we do it? No, I'm kidding. No, we're not going to use jQuery because it's not 2007. So seriously, how do we do it? Tween Max, also known as GSAP or Green Sock Animation Platform, is the industry standard for JavaScript animation. It's been since the Flash days. Is anyone an old Flash developer here? Okay, couple. So a guy named Jack Doyle made it like 15 years ago for ActionScript 2, back when we were doing those horrible Flash skip intro things. And then when ActionScript 3 came out, he rewrote it. And then when JavaScript took over, because Steve Jobs made iPhones and killed Flash, he rewrote it again. And this dude saved me so many hours of my life. If I met him in real life, I would buy him all the beers. Okay, let's look at some code after this GIF. That's amazing, right? I call that one, let's get geeky. Okay, over to CodePen. So what do I have here? I have a button, I have some basic styling, and that's about it. It doesn't do anything right now. This is the basic syntax for a tween in Tween Max. A tween is short for between. It's an animation term. It means animate between this point and that point. A tween. So this is the basic syntax, tweenmax.2, then the element you want to animate, the amount of time to animate in seconds, and then the options. In reality, it looks more like this. You can give it a CSS style selector as a string, 1 second, and in this case I'm saying scale to double the size. So can you guys read that? It's kind of, hang on, let me turn the light off with my fancy iPad. I'll cut this out of the video. Sometimes it works. Right? You want that in your house. That's when it works. So if I enable this animation, oh, it already happened, huh? Hey, 1 second from scale 1, so it's default size, to scale 2, the larger size. Really simple, nice interface, right? It's quite easy to read if it were bigger. I'm going to run out of room here. So there you go. That's your basic how to do a tween. You can select elements in any way you could possibly think of. So here we have just a basic string as a CSS style selector. A jQuery selection can be put in there. You can actually go and get an element using query selector or get element by ID or whatever and pass in the JavaScript variable holding that element, or an array of elements, or an array of strings, or an array of jQuery objects, or a jQuery selection with a bunch of objects in it. It's pretty much anything you throw at it, TweenMax will figure out for you. It's pretty sweet. Let's see. I lost my place. Just ignore me for a second. Okay. Options object. So that third object, let me see. Yeah, the third object, the options, how we actually, tell it what the animation is going to look like. In this case, I just did scale 2, but we can put pretty much anything you could think of in there. So, scale 2 is going to do it. Yeah, twice as big. That's way too big. Hang on. I'm just going to make it smaller real quick. Okay. So if I tell it to, go to scale 2, that's fine. I've got a bunch of other ideas, though, that I wrote down. Rotation 360. What? And this is just an object. It's I'm just putting in properties that I know from CSS, and some of them are shortcuts, right? The CSS for a rotate is not rotation, but TweenMax has a lot of little shortcuts like that. What else can we do? Background color. In camel case, because JavaScript can't deal with hyphens because it turns them into minuses. So you have to do camel case for some things. So I'll make it orange. Let's see. It turns orange. Color. Black. What else we got? Border radius. I'll just put a number in here. It'll convert numbers. It assumes pixels. So did I break something? Oh, there you go. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so color turned black, border radius change. So it'll animate whatever you give it. There's also, those are all CSS properties that I'm animating there. Okay. I can also describe other options of the animation. For example, I can change the easing function. Easing is sort of the calculation of how it, the default one is it slows down as it reaches the end of the animation, so it's a nice sort of smooth end. But we can put all kinds of weird stuff in here. So I said elastic.easeOut. Yeah, look at that. So elastic is a rubber band, right? So elastic's the style, ease out means do the easing at the end of the animation. If I did ease in, it would ease at the start. Let's do ease in, capital I. Can't type. So that was weird. Okay. I can put a delay on here. This is another option. So I can say delay 2. And now it'll wait 2 seconds. 1, 2, and then it'll do it. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to turn that one off because it will take forever. I can say repeat 3. Now it'll happen 3 times. Without me doing it. I'm not doing it. It's doing it. It actually happens 4 times because repeat means play once and then do it again these times. So I said repeat 3, that means total of 4. That one threw me for ages. If I have repeat turned on, I can say yo-yo. What? Yo-yo true. Forgot a colon. Now when it repeats, it'll actually run backwards. like after each repeat, which is sort of a weird effect. I haven't found much use for that one before, but that's fine. And then the last thing, the last option I want to show you is it has callbacks, so you can sort of subscribe to the, in this case, on complete. When the animation completes, I want this to happen. I'm just going to do a console log test. And I'll pull up my console. Yes, okay, it says test down there. That's sort of anticlimactic, but it worked. So, okay. There are so many more. Any CSS property that you could think of, you can probably animate it. And then there's so many more options, including lots of callbacks on complete, on start, on update, on this and that. But I'm not going to go through all of them. We don't have time. All right. What do we got next? So that was tweenmax.2. Tweenmax.2 means animate from wherever you are to these numbers. Tweenmax.from means animate from these numbers to wherever you were before, or wherever the natural position is. So that lets us do some really different effects. In my opinion, this is almost more powerful because you can set up the page however you want with CSS doing all your layout and styling and stuff, and like get your boss to approve it, and get your client happy, and then you can come back in and add animation later, and that's how I get repeat business, because I make the client happy, and then I throw some magic at them. And they love that shit. Oh, sorry. So tweenmax.from, all I had to do was change it to the word from, and now if I say scale 0, it's going to start at 0 and animate to 1, or animate from 0 to 1. So that's kind of cool, right? The button comes up, and that's magic. But it can be so much cooler. So if I give it a little rotation, did I spell that right? Yeah. So if I say rotation 20, now it has a little turn as it comes in. And it ends up straight, but it kind of turns as it comes in. What else can I do? Y is a shortcut for translate Y, so I can say Y50, and now it'll start 50 pixels down from where it ends. That's kind of cool, right? Look at that. What about an easing function? I'm going to use back this time. This is my favorite easing function. Back overshoots a little bit and then settles in. That was nice, right? It's a cool little button. It really wants you to click it. And you want to click that button. Now it's getting weird. You should stop talking. Okay. I call this one voila. I don't know. Let's move on. So, what do we have here? Oh, I left this one on. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. So this one, hey, look at that. I didn't really change much here. I have just 5 divs, all with the same class, so they can all be styled to be just red boxes. And when I said tweenmax2 and said .box, it went out and found all of them, and it animated all of them for me. That's cool. So they all go spinning across the page. The thing I want to show you now is a really cool feature called staggering the tweens. So if instead of tweenmax.2, if I say tweenmax.stagger2, and then I add that 4th argument that you see here at the end, I've called it gap, I can tell it to run all those 5 tweens, but with a little gap between them. I'll show you what I mean. Oops. Okay, so if I make it stagger2, and then I put an argument in here, 0.5, so stagger by half a second. Hey, look at that. Now they all wait their turn. Let's see that again. Oops. Wait, hang on. Okay, yeah, I don't want to kill it. So, yeah, now there's a half-second gap between them. And because the animation was 3/4 of a second, they actually overlap a little bit. But you can get a totally different feel based on how you stagger the animation. So I did half a second. If I make it 1 second, now it's very orderly, very regimented. They take their turn, they have a little gap between them, which feels totally different than a 1/10 of a second, where it's like an orchestrated, just a ballet of red boxes, right? It feels totally different. And if I go even shorter than that, 0.05, so a 20th of a second, now it feels like they're they're not even separated. They're almost just one thing all on purpose, but we can kind of feel that there's something else going on, that it's just a little bit more kind of whimsical. So that's Stagger 2. What have we got next? Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, magic. I call this one, developers are basically magicians. All right, one more cool feature, and then on to my examples that I promised you. Let's see, 5. So, I had too much fun with this. So here's my animation. I've already got it set up. That was pretty spelt, right? That's nice. They're all kind of coming into place. And you can see how I did it, right? The HTML is pretty basic. The CSS is just your regular old CSS. And then the JavaScript, I have 4 tweens, and they all just happen at the same time. What if I wanted them to happen in a sequence? We can make a timeline. I sort of mentioned that in the third slide. Timeline max is a feature of Tween max. You can put them all in a timeline instead. So you make a variable. I called mine grumpy timeline, because in case anyone doesn't know, that's grumpy cat. That's her name. If you didn't know who grumpy cat was, just leave. You can't be a developer. So yeah, you make a new instance of this timeline max object, and then instead of tweenmax.to, it's grumpytimeline.to. So let me go do that. Grumpy timeline equals new timeline max. I talk when I type, sorry. And then replace all these tween maxes, and it'll probably animate halfway and look weird. Okay. So now, cat, code, hate it, grumpy cat. All in sequence, just automatically. It just plays one after the next. Which is, I've only got 4 tweens here, so it's not that big of a deal. But could you imagine if I had 100, carefully orchestrated tweens, and then the client was like, just make that first bit take a little longer, and I had to go change the timing on every one of them? That would be insane. Put them in a timeline, I change the first one, the rest of them just adjust automatically. So timeline max is amazing. It also lets you do a fourth argument, which lets you tweak the timing. So let's say I wanted the your code, I hate it, those two to happen at the same time. That's this H1 and this H2. So if I put a fourth argument in here, it can just be an arbitrary label. So I'm just going to say, put the string A on there, on both of them. And now they'll happen at the same time. It just puts them in the timeline at the same moment. Another option for what we can do there is offsetting the tween by a certain amount of time. And the syntax for it is a little weird, but it kind of makes sense. Do minus equals and then the amount of time in a string. So if I sort of minus equals 3/4 of a second on each of these, now they're all going to overlap a little bit. You see how the animation is just slightly different? Now they still happen in sequence, but there's like this one, this one, this one, this one, instead of like this, 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 this. Does that make sense? Anybody lost? Okay. What have we got next? Okay, I got one of these. Yeah. I call this one the final countdown because I'm almost done. Examples. I promised you some more practical examples, and these are all in CodePen. I'll give you the link. I'll post it on Meetup, actually. On this Meetup, I'll go in the comment section and post it. So examples. I made some stuff. Oh, that looked weird. It's because I'm zoomed. Okay, let's see if I can make it look normal. Almost, okay. Hey, look at that. Page transition. So it's a timeline. I've got like page 1, page 2, and then this red swipey thing. And I'm not going to go into the tiny details of my whole timeline. You can look at it later if you like, but it's really quite easy to set up timelines like this. I'm basically saying, make page 1 go away, make the swipe thing happen, make page 2 appear, and then tell those 3 things to happen at almost the same time. And then the reverse is true. I get rid of page 2, make the swipey thing go the other way, and then show page 1, all at almost the same time. And you can see I've used that fourth argument quite a lot. Page 1 is the label, and then the difference, or the offset from that going on. Yes? Not in my example. This is just an animation, but if this was the actual transition between two pages on a website, you would have to have buttons or something that would trigger these discrete animations, which isn't too hard to do. Just add event listener and then put the timeline inside the event handler. Okay, what else have I got? Whoa. What has he done here? That's kind of cool looking, right? What have I done? So I made a div called background, and then I used just a loop to put 25 divs inside that. And then I staggered them all. I used stagger from to, which is another one. I didn't really mention it before, but you can say the start point and the end point. So I described the way each of these divs grows and shrinks. And then I told it to stagger them. So it does the first one, then the next one, then the next one. And so you get this cool trippy effect. And this is way too intense. Ask Nia, she would not approve. This is not okay to have as the background of your website for real. But something more subtle, if it's, maybe if it's close shades of gray or something, just being a sort of a textural background could be really cool. The computer is going to take off. The fan's going. So that one maybe not that efficient. I like this one. I figured out the other day that you can animate just arbitrary objects. It doesn't even have to be a DOM element. So in this case, I made an object, counter object, and it's bottles 99. It's the bottles property of my counter object is 99. And then I told TweenMax to tween counter object to tween the bottles property of it. And it worked. And it adjusted the value of the bottles number from 99 down to 0. And then this onUpdate function is a callback, so I could update the counter in the DOM as the number changed. But yeah, so it sings 99 bottles of beer on the wall for me. And it even eases. You see how it's slowing down at the end? That's pretty cool. Yeah, what have we got here? Oh yeah, so one of my things that I mentioned was draw eye to the area of focus. I did that. Hey, look at my buy button. Just has a little wiggle to it. Wait for it. Yeah, it's nice, right? He's like, hey, buddy. And then the other part was relationships between elements. When I click the buy button, watch the cart. That's where it went. It added an item to the cart. So the cart was like, that's where it went. And that's great for users, especially older folks that aren't very tech savvy. If they click the add to cart button and there isn't a little message right there that says the item was added to your cart, they might never know that there is a cart. They might just drop off and not go through the checkout process. So on this website, when they want to buy a widget, we tell them where that widget went. And maybe they'll buy too many because they love the animation, right? So the wiggle was a timeline that just had a very slight rotation. And I figured out that, I told you I figured out that animating an object that just has no properties. Here I literally just gave it an empty object and told it not to animate anything in the object, but do so over 5 seconds. So that's how I had it wait 5 seconds between wiggles of the button. And then down here, you've got just your basic event listener. And then the cart icon just jumps up 20 pixels, rotates a little bit, and then falls down back to its origin with a little bounce at the end. That's another easing function, the little bounce as it hits the ground. Fun, right? Okay, what have I got next? Oh, I had to have some hamburger menus. There's way too many of these on the internet, and so I only did 2. But they're cool when they do their little transforms. Look at this one. What? That's for if the menu, if the menu's down from the button. I had fun with that one. Not gonna lie, it took me 10, 15 minutes. And then, was that Shelly or Rachel?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That,
the one who was like, oh yeah, we had this conversation like 2 days ago, specifically about hamburgers.
those are my students. This one, I called it image mouse follow. So sometimes you get the giant blown up image, maybe even on your phone. I guess that wouldn't work because it's not a mouse. But I wrote some code to have it kind of check where the mouse is and move the image's background position with a slight smoothing, so it eases out. So that you can look around your image if maybe it's like the magnifying glass thing on Amazon when you're inspecting a product. And it's not too hard. The math is a little weird because you have to get the mouse position and then measure the object and then turn that into a percentage. But once you kind of grok that math, it's really quite a simple tween. Okay, moving on. That one is a bit too geeky, I think. Okay, these are always fun. Do it. Okay. What? Look at that. Image gallery, random. Fun, right? So in this one, I'll show you the code in a second. Wait for it. Okay, there's a lot of girls on this website. It's like a random thumbnail generator website for placeholder images, and there's a lot of girls on there. So I gathered up the thumbnail images, just the way you normally would, and I ran it through a shuffle, and I had to do it 3 times because I wrote a really crappy shuffle algorithm. But after I shuffled it, then I throw that into the Stagger 2, and now it picks, like they're in a different random order, so when it does the first one, then the second one, it'll be, random around the grid, which is kind of a cool effect, right? Let's see that one more time. It takes a second to load because the internet in here sucks. So yeah, what do you think? That's all my examples, by the way. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, I got a little, it was late, give me a break. Here's my final thought. Love what you do, and I don't mean to enjoy it. I mean, you should enjoy it while you're doing it, but put love into what you do. When you build something, put love into it, and people will love it back. That's my whole concept here. I love that little cart icon. And anyone who goes to that website is going to be like, oh, look at that. And they'll feel good about this website. That's what I'm talking about. Put love into what you do, and it'll love you back. I hope I've expanded some minds. See, get it? How about some questions? Yes. Well, you said easily. The problem with single-page app frameworks is when you try to transition from one state to another, it wants to do it instantly. It wants to destroy the old page and create the new page in like milliseconds. So there's different ways to do it for different frameworks, and it's pretty easy to find on the web how people suggest to do it. I didn't want to cover that here because I knew my talk was already kind of long. But yeah, basically you have to convince Angular to hold off on destroying the old page and run your exit animation, and then it can make the new page as fast as it wants, and then you make your entrance animation for that stuff. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah?
This might become a naive question, but how do you find the libraries for TweenMax?
TweenMax, I always Google it. Greensock.com, there's a big green download button. It's on CDN.js. It's in NPM and everything. It's readily available.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to ask this, but it's always like, oh, but what about Tween?
I've made plenty of slideshows where one image was replaced by another with a fade. But there was no magic to it. I basically just put the new image behind the old one with position absolute, and then told the one in front, the old image, to fade out, opacity fade down to 0, or tween down to 0.
I'm just thinking about things like, I like the animation design and adding the parts, and matching the parts, like actually changing to like the one.
Okay. There are lots of plugins for TweenMax. There's one called Draw SVG, and another one called Morph SVG, which are really fun. Again, pretty geeky. You need to get SVG graphics, which is scalable vector graphics, made in Illustrator, probably by somebody with some illustration skill, which isn't me. and have a before and after, and then write some code that'll run it through that plugin, and it's pretty complicated. But yes, it can be done. You can turn any vector graphic into any other vector graphic, which is pretty cool. I think that's one of the paid plugins. Tween Max is mostly free, but it's like $99 a year or something, and you get a bunch of other plugins, which I totally pay for because literally this guy saved me thousands of hours of my life because I don't want to write Tween logic. Okay. Anybody? Questions? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, this was from like the dark ages of, IE7 and IE6, and it still works. There's a couple of features like rotation where it does some crazy IE hacks if you did it back then, and then a couple more that simply weren't possible, and so you have to kind of know those going in. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's supported pretty far back. Yes? 3D animation libraries? No. I don't know. I haven't done any 3D stuff. Sorry. If anyone has any suggestions, meetup.com comment section. Huh? Yes.
You're talking about offloading the CSS in the
Oh, I was supposed to do this. Sorry. Yes.
that transform Z kind of thing. Do you just do asterisk in that, or is each individual element that you're going to?
Oh no, don't do that with the asterisk. Yeah. Yeah, he's asking that CSS hack to make it use the GPU would translate Z0. He asked, should I just at the top of my CSS file do asterisk and then that, which would apply it to every single element on the page. No, don't do that. That's you'll make everyone's battery die really quickly. Do that selectively. Yes. Anybody else? Yeah. Go ahead.
Why did you choose to go with this versus animate.js?
So animate.js, I believe, is a JavaScript library that just applies CSS animations to elements for you. And it's good. It's really good for your basic stuff. But this lets you do literally anything. And that is a sort of a small library of possible animations. And if your animation that you want to do isn't in there, then you're out of luck. So I like this because you can do literally anything. Questions? Any more questions? I got a ton of these. Yes?
Do you ever mix it in with data visualization?
Sorry?
Do you ever mix it in with like D3 for data visualization?
Yeah, it works with D3 and Raphael and all that stuff because it's, like I said, it can literally just translate, or not translate, it can animate the properties of objects with no trouble. It can animate SVG properties. It can do all that stuff. So yeah, it works really well with the graphing libraries and drawing libraries and stuff.
So it can animate any element.
Yeah.
So even like body tag.
Yeah. I mean, I've animated the background color of a body, but I can't think of any other things that I would want to animate on the body.
Well, think of like you go to the web page, and then instead of just showing the web page will like spin up.
No. I don't know if you're allowed to rotate the body. Somebody do it quick. Students with laptops. Figure it out. See if you can rotate the entire body. Okay. Yeah, that's not animating the whole body. Have you guys seen that? If you type do a barrel roll into Google, it takes the whole Google page and does a barrel roll. Yes, that one doesn't animate the whole body. It wraps everything in a container first. I've inspected it because that's the guy I am. It wraps everything in a container first and then rotates the container. Yep. All right, any more?
Are there any patterns to follow?
Any what?
Any patterns to follow?
Okay, you can rotate the body. Any patterns to follow? What do you mean? Any just sort of best practices?
Yeah, best practices and references.
Well, I mean, I got all those code pens for you. The docs for GreenSock are actually really great. There's it's pretty insane how well Jack Doyle, who created it, documented the whole thing with like trial things where you can tweak the code and it'll kind of, I think it's embedded CodePen actually. So there's lots of documentation on how to do it. I haven't seen like wrong ways to do it. I usually just hack stuff together. That's what we do, right? And as long as it's not a constant animation that's always happening, like, you know, where was it? Like this one, you know, this is going to eat your CPU. But if it's just little transitional animations, just a little cart bounce or whatever, you probably don't have to worry too much about performance. So in terms of best practices, do you hear that? It's going to take off. I've got to close that tab. Yeah, in terms of best practices, I'm not aware of any. Just if your computer gets hot, maybe back off. Okay, sorry, go back to this. Any other questions? I think that might be my last one. Yes? Mm-hmm. It's just like the pro version of GreenSock, of Tween Max. And like 99% of the features are in the free version. And it's an open license too, so you can build pretty much anything with it without, you know, being patent encumbered or anything like that. So I pay for the couple of extra features. I don't use many of them. I've used maybe one of them, but I really want to support it because he's a really good developer who's giving back so much for free. So, is there any more? Nope, that's my last question-related GIF. And is that the last question? Because that would work perfectly. Okay.